I think what has been really great, and I'm also just really grateful to have just an amazing co-founder in Gabrielle, is that we both as people just really value inclusivity and DEI. We're just not bullshit people. Like, we have a no bullshit policy. Like, if you are an asshole, like, you don't get a second chance. Like, we really want it to be a really safe, inclusive, and authentic space.
Hi, my name is Courtney, and welcome to How They Scaled It, where scaling is done with both sides of the brain. On this show, we sit down with growth stage businesses and speak with the founders and industry leaders from e-commerce and SaaS sectors. We showcase their journeys, unpacking the pivotal moments, marketing strategies, and key decisions that shaped their success. Today, I'm bringing on Natalie Cantave. Natalie is the co-founder of Marketing Women, a thriving community empowering women and gender non-conforming professionals in marketing. She's also the co-host of the Marketing Talk podcast. Natalie has led mission-focused marketing strategies from idea to impact by blending data and creativity to build networks and scale community-driven solutions. Natalie, it is great to see you, and welcome to How They Scaled It.
Thanks, Courtney. I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. Yeah, you've built such a cool community, and I'm really excited to learn more about how you did that. So why don't we start at the beginning? What inspired Marketing Women?
Yeah, I guess it kind of starts with career. So pretty much like my general background, I am a full stack marketer, really having a career in B2B SaaS in the Boston area. And it started, well, I guess maybe I should start how I met my co-founder, Gabrielle Dalve. Yeah. We met in person, and we always joke, we're not sure exactly what year, if it was 2017 or 2018, but we met in person at a marketing conference. So relationships do work when you just go up to someone and be like, hey, how are you? Yeah. So we just had throughout the years really just stayed in touch as peers, and I saw her as a mentor. And we just had connected about our own personal journeys in marketing. Gabrielle, for example, worked in e-commerce, a New Balance 47 before transitioning to SaaS and B2B tech. I had my career mostly in healthcare and then was pivoting in different industries. And we just had connected about our own challenges as marketers, whether it is trying to find the right resources, whether it was hey, we're trying to plan an event in Boston, where are some great spaces to, trying to find mentors, or even just us as women, just our own challenges as being women in a male dominated industry. So we really bonded over that over a 2-3 year period. And then COVID, where we were home, right? We're isolated, and I was feeling, I guess I was at a role where I had a great manager, but they didn't really know marketing. And especially for me being in a role where I was a one-person marketing team, I didn't have, a colleague to go to and ask for feedback on maybe how, to optimize a blog post with SEO or think about an approach a different way. I definitely learned a lot of great skills just around operations and project management, but not really the parts that I was looking for in marketing. So we had seen come out in 2020, which we were very pumped about, just their mission of really supporting women who were at the suite regardless of, function and department. But Gabrielle and I were okay, what about for the people that are wanting to get there, or maybe don't want to, achieve the level of a chief marketing officer? And I think that's where we kind of were trying to figure out what a community could look like and if it was out there. So we decided to just build our own.
Yeah, I love that. No, I think when I think about my career, when I first started, I think this is true of so many marketers, is that when you get hired in a marketing position, a lot of times the person hiring you doesn't really know what marketing is. And so then you're doing social media, and you're doing ads, and you're doing email marketing, and you're doing content development, and you're doing website. And it's not very many people can do all of those things. And also each of those is a specialty, and something this kind of community probably would have really helped me a lot in the beginning, where I was just oh yeah, I guess I can do all of these things, but not all of them very well. And so having just a sounding board, or even somewhere just to be frustrated and complain about whatever.
I think it's exactly. I think just having that sounding board where it's frustrating, or even what should I think really one of the challenges too, where I remember the first job I think I worked at a startup, and it was my first one person building out marketing at a startup, and I realized I was not making what I should be. Like, it was below market rate. And right. I know Gabrielle and I, that's one of the things that we love with Marketing Women is just really being able to make sure that women and gender non-conforming individuals are getting paid what they're, because I think without that community, like I probably wouldn't have realized that I was making significantly below market rate and how I should have, negotiated for the salary off like my experiences or where the company was at that stage. So kind of just, basically like the sounding board friend that we wish we had early in our careers, but now we built.
Yeah. So as you started building it, what were kind of the major challenges just to get it off the ground and start attracting people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one, we were like, is this what people really want?
Yeah.
I think we were ideating on it, and, especially being just right in our own homes, like, do people want to really connect?
Yeah.
So we first posted March 2021, so our 4-year anniversary is actually coming out for launching the community, and I think it was around like St. Patrick's Day, ironically, that we just posted about it and how we started it as a and that's how we really just landed our first community members. Like some of them were actually like our OGs, we call them, are in the Boston area, so it was really cool to see people like be interested and want to be part of a community. So I think that like with the initial just getting it out there was probably just like a challenge, and definitely imposter syndrome of just starting and starting from scratch. A lot of our concepts were really virtual events, which were great, just around different topics. Like we did one around like how to think about like inclusive like marketing and DEI, to thinking about just like how to work great with designers, right? Because that's sometimes like a big part of just marketers, like how, like working with designers or, maybe video editors. And also just, kind of like the skills of like leadership and communication. And then we kind of were, as we were growing out the community, we were thinking about just how to provide more value, like what are members looking for. And some of that came through of like wanting mentors. So we built out like a mentor program. And then, definitely a part which was really important for us last year was that people were kind of getting tired of not getting tired. I think people want to reconnect in person.
Right.
I think definitely we knew that we had something great because we were able to marketers from all over the globe, which was really awesome. And across the US, but also just how do we create like great moments like in person. And then I think another challenge for us too was how long, like, do we want to just stay as a free community, right? I think something for Gabrielle and I, which was kind of like a pivotal point for where marketing really shifted, was just like, one, just tools are really expensive, right?
Yeah.
Like the Slack we were on and being able to just like have all of just like your messages like staying in Slack, like cost money per user, like per month, where it was like, we had a point where we were like 1,000 members, which was great, but we're like, we don't have the money to pay for all of this like out of our own pocket, and being able to grow. So we decided to just file as an LLC and become a business, and also shift like last year to a paid model. So I think that was a challenge too, of like, how do we get just like engagement? How do we make sure we're providing value? But also in order to scale, like kind of need to make money to be able to do the things that we want to do. So I think those were a couple of things that, came up.
Yeah. When you shifted from a free model to a paid model, was that hard for your membership? Like, did you guys see a drop, or was everyone pretty like bought in at that point?
It's a good question. We kind of told our story as, in order for us to grow and scale, like we need to, invest in the business that we are growing in. And part of that means like switching our business model. We were pretty transparent too around just, like in order to scale, like things are expensive. Like Gabrielle and I are balancing Marketing Women full-time jobs, and how, like definitely want to grow and scale and be able to provide value. But that means like, having some skin in the game. We also still communicate that, inclusive pricing is always something that's really just the core people and really embedded in Marketing Women, where we offered a price point that's now jokingly like than definitely we always are, like talking about how if someone, is impacted by a layoff, like we don't want them to not have access to resources. So we have always said, like, reach out to us if you're in need of financial assistance, and we'll be there. So I think there definitely was support and understanding, luckily, from our community, especially the ones that have been around, to be able to convert. I think definitely it was like a shift where, we definitely saw the numbers drop, but the engagement has been higher. I think there's just, so much more that we've been able to do. Like we were able to get like sponsors, which was really exciting. We were able to do in-person events, not only in Boston. We went to New York, since we have a contingency there. And I think it definitely was worth it for us to switch to this paid model. And I think it also, at least I can say for myself, like it really felt like a moment where I was like a true moment of like making that decision with Gabrielle, to really shift that model. I'd say overall we got definitely support, which is great, and I think we continue to grow even with
well, I mean, and the reality is that like if you didn't start charging, organization probably wouldn't even exist anymore because like you have to like either that or it have to be pulled back, and you'd have to put a cap on members, and that also feels really exclusive in a way that you're probably trying to avoid. So I think that it's totally fair to, especially when the members are getting this value of seeing salary transparency and getting advice and mentorship, like all those things are really, really valuable that will hopefully get them to a higher salary levels, and also just like not feeling so lonely. It's kind of a huge deal.
I think really just like the loneliness part, I think definitely finding just mentors like across industries and perspectives. Like definitely we have members that are SaaS and B2B, but we also have folks that are in e-commerce and consumer, also folks who are owning their own agency or freelancers. And I think really regardless of what your path is in marketing, like you have a place here and you have a community that will support you. And I think it's really, the goal is for it to support any woman or gender nonconforming individual, like regardless of what their path is. Like I think right now where, the job market is crazy, and, there are folks who are debating like, should I go into consulting or should I go into freelance? Like we already have folks who have made that jump and can offer advice and support. Definitely offering support of different templates, like a resume that can help just, screen, especially with everything going on with, like AI. Definitely just like different workshops that we offer. But also too, I think one of the biggest ones is definitely like our salary benchmarking report. Being able just to have connections like with other marketers. And also we've been able to do some in-person events too. Still virtual because we want to still reach our audience all over. But at least our East Coast based events have been really great, where it just makes the community feel like really magical and real, that the connections I've made virtually, like they still continue like in person, and they still continue after I meet in person and back in virtual. And it's just really great people. And I think that's something that Gabrielle and I are really proud of, just creating just a really safe space, inclusive and welcoming space for really anyone who wants to be part of our community.
Yeah, and I love like having in-person events because it's kind of a very full circle moment for your relationship with Gabrielle and like how you guys met, and then creating those spaces for more people to meet. And like that's kind of a fun way of like it all coming together.
It has been awesome just like meeting. Like last month I guess in January, we did a co-working event at Wistia, which was one of our sponsors, which was great because some people had never been back in an office since that weird day in 2020 when we were like, oh, we'll come back in 2 weeks, and then that was a lie. But it was really nice to just work with other marketers where you can just get the live feedback that you need, instead of usually through the community on Slack, but also just be able to like really have authentic, genuine conversations, and know that everyone that like I met, like I have loved every conversation I've had. I definitely went to a networking event after hours and like knew a couple of the attendees that were there, so it was great to just know familiar faces in Boston. But I think just be able to just get out of the house, feel really productive, learn also from other great, amazing marketers like in the Boston area. And then it was really great too. The CEO of Wistia, Chris Savage, actually I chat too and spoke with members, and it was great for just marketers to question him. And I think it was great to just hear from his perspective because he understands marketing. He's offered really great insights and perspective too. And it's not every day you get to sit down and hear from a CEO, let alone someone in your own neighborhood. So it was a really great.
Yeah, that's amazing. So like it sounds like you've had a lot of really great success. Has there been anything that you've tried to do that just like hasn't worked, that you had to kind of say, okay, that's not the direction, we need to like pivot and do something else?
That's a good question. I think some of the things where we've had to pivot has been around just how do we get sponsors. I think just how do we create the value when we're outreaching to sponsors. I think that's been something where we've pivoted. I think just some of the like, what hasn't worked? I think it feels like weird and cliche to be like nothing hasn't worked. Because I think
it's been perfect like the whole time.
I think just really like just the pivotal decision to pivot from free to paid, I think was one where, like we were like, will people not support marketing women was a really big question. I think just like our virtual events, we are very lucky that like whether our virtual summit, which is a little bit bigger, which we did in December, to our like member focused events, like even if it's a few people that attend virtually, like quality conversations. And I feel like that's where, even though like, yes, sometimes it's not the numbers that, we hope for, like the quality is there and the relationship that continues. So I think that's where we more see those as wins. So I guess that's why, like, even though, yes, like, I think those have been the ones I think about. I think the one that was probably challenging was trying to get a happy hour together around a time of our really big conference in Boston where it was like, there's just so much happening. And I think back to school and timing. But I think it's something where we would try it again for sure in a different way. But I think we are grateful that, just the type of events that we have and people we bring together, like they are successes. Like we did recently a Black Marketers Meetup for Black History Month, and it was about 10 marketers. And even though it was a small number, like the quality of conversation was amazing in terms of just talking about like AI and how do we think about like upskilling AI and just how like us as Black marketers, like it's so great that we are using and leveraging a technology that even though, maybe like my parents my parents use AI, but like there's still like a distrust around it. Or also just thinking about like how to just support each other, right, with the job search or even just some of the challenges. I think like it was just a great conversation that the hour flew by so quickly. But those relationships are continuing, right? Where folks were like, hey, like, how can I help with introductions to a company you're interested in? Or I'm happy to, send prompts for AI, how I think about the job search that maybe can help you. Or so I feel like it's really the quality that we think about in terms of like impact, which is, I guess, why there hasn't been like any big failures.
It doesn't feel like a lot of failures just because it's even things that are a struggle turn out to be good. Or I think it might also just be like a perspective thing where it's like if there's any positivity coming out of it or anything that has been able to help somebody, then it's like, well, it was probably worth it in the end. So
and I think we also do, whenever like for example, like 2025, like I really talked to a lot of members because Gabrielle on maternity leave, but really just ask them like, what are you looking for? What do you need? How can marketing women really support you, like given where you are in your journey? Like whether it is you as a job seeker, you as a freelancer, you as someone who is happy at your current company but is looking to maybe like upskill or think about like, okay, maybe I'm ready for that promotion. Like how can marketing women help me with just like executive presence or how to communicate my ideas? Like regardless of where they are in the journey, like that's really where we take that feedback and really plan our just the type of events, like who we kind of bring in externally. And I think just also just advice that we can offer to in the community. So I think that's where we really make the effort to really understand just the different type of marketers that we have and kind of tailor the experience so that way we're continuing to provide value. So I guess it's a perspective, but
yeah. So you mentioned that you had started getting sponsors. So Wistia was one of the sponsors. How did you approach that? Because you probably didn't have any experience like finding sponsors in your previous career. So how did you approach that?
Yeah. So it's interesting where actually one of my roles at Mass Challenge, I was in a marketing role, but a lot of it was working with like corporate partners. So like the city of Boston, Brigham and Women's Hospital. Now they're like Mass General Brigham, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, a few different pharmaceutical companies. So I was involved with a lot of like partnerships marketing, creating like materials. But I think it was for something, right, like that had been established. Like I definitely was really different making the transition of like, okay, like Marketing Women is a company, right, and a business. How do I sell this thing that I created? Was definitely a shift. I think Gabrielle, I have to give credit to Gabrielle because she was the one who made the connection to Wistia. But I think and we've had a few other sponsors like Wistia, Goldcast. They sponsored our virtual summit in December, and we were able to host our event on their platform, which was really great. We've also had a sponsor called Teak and Twine that also sponsored our virtual summit. And I would say those three. But I think really the way that we were able to land Wistia was through our CMO Supper Club dinner, where it's just an opportunity to really gather 20 to 25 like senior level marketers in the Boston for just, like conversation and connect. And they were on board with it. Also Goldcast as well. They were actually the two that made our first dinner possible. So really have to give credit to them. And it was just a really great event. Like we did it at row 34. So it was like great for, seafood. But I think just one, being able to get people together because they've been wanting in-person connection. I think people just don't want to feel like they're getting sold something. And we really wanted it to be just a place to just gather, senior level women at a dinner table just for conversation, regardless of the challenges that you're facing or what you're seeing in your own respective organizations. And it was awesome. Like we've had women in tech companies, like a marketer at WGBH, and just, a lot of different types of companies where everyone just could come in and say like, I know everyone is in marketing, kind of just like don't have to do the super pitch of like, this is what I do in my company.
Right.
But could really just dive in authentically in a safe way, in a fun way of just like, what is it like being just a marketer? What are some of the maybe challenges we're facing as women or gender nonconforming individuals in marketing? How can we just support each other? And just even if there are women and gender nonconforming individuals that want to get to the next level, like this is the people that will help and support you, get you there. And Wistia and Goldcast like understood that, and once they also attended the dinner, and it was just like a really awesome. It was funny because it rained, and we were like, oh my God, what if people don't show up because it was raining? And people came. I think it
was inside, right?
That moment, like it's real, it's happening. But it was just like there was just such like magic, like getting people together. And I think that's where afterwards they were like, okay, when is the next one? And we were like, to like actually plan the next one.
Right.
So we're actually planning one for hopefully this summer. So definitely stay tuned for that, and would love to have you there too, Courtney.
I'd love to.
But I think that I think that just really unlocked just like different potentials and opportunities. And that's how, through that CMO Supper Club dinner was kind of how the conversation started around like a co-working space could look like. Which is, how our event was made possible at Wistia's offices, and their offices in Cambridge were awesome. Like for me, it was nice to like not be at home and just be around people.
Right.
But I think it was also very surprising how productive. Like I think, yes, there is definitely great, opportunities to have conversations and make connections, but also just get work done. Which was a very big part. We were like, yes, we want it to be a space for you to like get your job done in a different place where you usually do. But also, just learn from other marketers and make those connections of people like you probably wouldn't meet, right? Like in Boston. So I think that hopefully answered your question. I feel like
no, it did. I mean, I think it kind of also brings us, because I think while you are a community of marketers, like you've really focused on like DEI and inclusivity, which seems like very important right now. And I think about like previous company or that I've like been familiar with, like The Wing, which was like a co-working space that was built on supporting women and gender nonconforming people, and it kind of like crashed down and it grew too fast, and a lot of really like it was just like wasn't a great, ended up not being a great space. So kind of when you're looking at marketing women, how are you avoiding that kind of mess while also being able to scale like in an authentic way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what has been really great, and I'm also just really grateful to have just an amazing co-founder in Gabrielle, is that we both people just really value inclusivity and DEI. I mean, I can speak for myself as a Black woman in tech, like representation is so important to me, right? And I think that's something where it's really awesome, right, in the marketing women community, where there is a space for Black marketers to act, because there is, out of the roles I've had, I have not worked with a marketer who looks like me on a marketing team, right? Or have had a Black female manager right? So, and Gabrielle also, like, for her, when she's been a manager, has always thought about, like, inclusivity, making sure that her direct reports are getting paid what they're worth, right? Making sure that there's pay equity. So I think just us as people was definitely something that brought us together, but also was core to like the DNA of marketing women. I think really for us, how we think about just scaling with authenticity is we're just not bullshit people. Like we have a no bullshit policy. Like if you are an asshole, like you don't get a chance. Like we really want it to be a really safe, inclusive, and authentic space. So I think that's one part, like just as us as people, like we're just not dealing with intolerance. I think also to another part, I think with us just scaling intentionally is just making sure, like, I think really just both of us sharing our own story of, you know, like the times where, like, I remember I was impacted by my first layoff, right? And sharing that with marketing women of like, hey, like, yes, like, it was very humbling for me, right? Yeah. But I was really grateful to share that. And I knew the marketing women community, like, poured into me when I needed it too. And yeah, Gabrielle sharing her own perspective too. Like, I think that's because we're very authentic and vulnerable. I think that's where the community just has been a place where people can really feel safe and also just like, kind of come to us for really anything. And I think too, when we think about just like sponsorships, like working with companies that support DE&I, because it's also just fundamental to who we are. So I think that's where we want to be intentional, right? Of whoever we want to partner with, like as an organization, like making sure that they really understand the value of getting women and, you know, for whatever it is. But also just really standing with DE. So I think it's, just kind of like us as people and how we just poured it into the.
Yeah. Well, when I think about the way, but kind of just the only other thing that I can kind of compare this to, like The Wing or other brands that have tried to kind of build their company on DEI or supporting women, I think where a lot of people fall apart is when they want to scale super quick and make a ton of profit. And you can't do that while supporting underrepresented communities. Like, you just can't do it because they're kind of like at odds with each other. Like, in order to make a ton of profit, you have to reach the broadest group of people possible. And you have to like let go of a lot of your values in order to do that. But I think the fact that it was so hard for you guys to be like, should we start charging people? And like, that was like the biggest moment in your company. And like, okay, maybe we charge people and we can start getting sponsors. I think that is probably what's like keeping you guys in check and showing that you have really good head on your shoulders when building this community. Cause it is hard. And I'm sure it's really tempting to be like, we could charge people $50 a month and we can make a ton more money. And, you know, we could bring in Target as a sponsor that has like abandoned their DEI, but they have a lot of money. And I think that being so intentional and being so authentic means that you scale slower, but you're scaling correctly.
I think also another part too is realizing that we can't do everything, right? Where we definitely have had really big visions, and we still do. And I think that definitely keeps us like going towards our North Star of what we want marketing women to be. But we're not, I think we know we will get there, but I think that's like, we just can't do everything right now. Right. So I think just really for us, really honing on our, like, what are our priorities? I think it was like back in 2023, we had like, I can't remember fully the idea we had. Our members at the time needed support because it was, not what the market is now, but it was a time where, folks were getting impacted by layoffs. Some of our members were getting impacted by layoffs when they were pregnant or on maternity leave. And we were like, okay, what the community needs right now is just support, whether it is support with resumes, support with introductions, support with mock interviews, and just helping folks get jobs, right? So that way they can have income for just themselves and their household and, whatever they need it for. So we were like, okay, we need to double down on this right now. And I think that's where we launched like more of our like mentor program, just to build that, because that's what our community wanted. So I think like really responding to what the needs are is kind of why we, double down on certain things at different times. And I think I think scaling with intention has been something that is important to us. But I think also another part is we definitely want to be able to grow the community where someday we hire marketers. And I think it's something where we definitely want to get to a place where we're paying the marketers, like, or I guess anyone who would hire at that point, like what they're worth. And I think it's like, we could, get to a certain place like today, but maybe it's just not the right time or like blah. But sorry, just was like lost my train of thought. But essentially, like, we want to just scale intentionally to a point where when we're ready to build a team, we're paying folks what they're worth, right? And I think that's something where we know we'll get there. And we definitely are really lucky to have some supportive, volunteers who want to help because they really love and believe in us and marketing women, which, but I think also too is like, we are also not, we're bootstrapping marketing women. And I think that's also a part where like, we really want to build like a sustainable and scalable business, like where I think that's where we've been proud of too, of just, bootstrapping it and just really growing it and scaling with intention. And someday we're excited to check off some of the big things that we want to do. Like our podcast, we probably wanted to do it back in, we kind of were noodling on it in 2023. But it wasn't the right time, right? So then last year, we're like, okay, this is the time and we're ready, start it. So I think just some of those decisions where we've had to be honest of, can we really take this on right now? Just even our own like life journeys, right? Because we're still people and, things at the end of the day. But I'm, definitely really grateful for just all of the moments we've had. And just grateful to be working with Gabrielle, where we are really honest to each other, but we have the same vision and we support each other. And I think just, we're excited for what the community will be and what will become. It just will take a little bit of time to get there, but it's okay.
And that's good. I think that you can build it fast or you can build it right sometimes. So
yes, exactly.
When you talk for any founders who are looking to build a community around their brand or the mission, or build, a community of marketers or developers or, that kind of thing, what are the first steps that you would recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you are wanting to build it with a co-founder, like, make sure it's the right person, because they're really your partner. Like I joke with my partner that Gabrielle is my first partner because we were partners in business before him. But it is a very important relationship, right? I'm grateful that Gabrielle and I met as friends and we connected before taking this path together. But we know each other, right? And I know that we trust each other with decisions. Like now she's on, maternity leave with her daughter. And I'm kind of, running the marketing women. But she trusts that the decisions I make are going to be the best decisions, and vice versa, where if it's a period where life is busy or crazy, but I think also just every, day to day, we trust each other. I think we definitely have great skills that balance each other out. So I think when we decided of okay, these are the areas that I'm going to tackle in, whether it's Gabrielle is great at the finance pieces, right? Where she kind of owns that, but I've learned a lot more of them through her, and vice versa. Like there are things that I've done and, you know, experimentation that she's benefited from. So I think just really making sure you have the right partner is really important, because we talk like pretty much every day. Like now she's on maternity right now. I'm like, I miss her. And I'm like, send me baby pictures, but I still like send her updates of what's happening. But knowing that, you know, when she's coming back from maternity leave, like we'll be able to work together and she's not like she's lost.
Right.
Or like what's been happening. So I think making sure you have the right partner. I think the second would be your just values of what's important to you in the community. For us, it's, you know, like inclusivity and DEI and, you know, representation. And that's something we really make sure of, like at every event, like especially our virtual event, like we make sure that we have like representation of what the different types of marketers are out there, regardless of industry or specialty or, you know, like all the different, you know, beautiful things that make diversity, and making sure that we have that representation is really important to us. But I think also like our values, like what we stand for, is another thing I'd recommend. I think also the part to like your brand and mission will evolve, and that's okay too. I think that's something where it's funny as marketers, right? When we were first thinking about like the website, like we were like, okay, what does it like look like? And we're so much more like nitpicky about different things. But the website it is right now is not what it was when it first started. But we're like super proud of like the direction and kind of like just the brand too. So I think just like letting time.
It doesn't have to be perfect right away. Like it will evolve, just like people evolve. You change your what you like, and like there are trends and stuff that you probably want to latch onto. So
and I think the last part probably I would say is like, make sure you're really talking to whoever you're serving and really understanding like what their needs are. And I think that's also just like business in general, but really understanding, right, your end user customer is really important.
Because it's, I mean, what's so interesting is that you're building this community, and community is like at its core so intimate, and it's like it's so tight knit, and to scale that, like the bigger the community gets, like the less tight knit it tends to be, and there's tends to be like little side things. So I think that staying in touch with the core of your community and like recognizing that it changes over time as it grows is probably pretty important. So, and I think that like you having these like in-person events and virtual events and like being really mindful of all of that has been what's kind of like made you successful so far.
I think the also fun part too, like from switching and pivoting, was like our newsletters. Like we love our newsletters because we make them very personal, but we also touch on like what we're going through as well. And I think that also carries into like our own authenticity. So like one of the newsletters, like I recently was part for Black History Month. It was just like, okay, like one, like marketing women is a Black owned business, which like recognizing that, but also like, here's a little bit about me and my story. So I shared like, just like my background in marketing, or like, what are the things I like to do outside of marketing women, because I'm still a person, or like some of my goals for the year. Like I shared that like my goal is to read 25 books, right? Like in the year. But also like we share just like our own, like in our newsletters, like whether we're thinking about content, right? And how to create like content that works and is distributed across multiple channels, or whether it's like, okay, how do we find the right mentors to, you know, and sharing our own stories too, I think just makes it really human. We also, I kind of write ours and I always feel like I laugh at me, but I also just, I think just like showing parts of ourselves are really what make it fun. So I think that goes back to like like for the advice of like, what is your brand and how do you want, you know, people to feel when they come? And
so what does the next year or 5 years look like for marketing women?
Ooh, great question. I think for the next year, definitely some more like in-person events. Like definitely we're planning some like, you know, the supper clubs again, noodling another like co-working event, which is super exciting. Definitely releasing more of our podcast episodes, so look out for those. And I think still like part growing and scaling for what we have, manifesting some new sponsors that come through. So I think that's probably like the 1 year of just, scaling with intention. I think probably like, because I think right now it's been myself. So I'm excited when Gabrielle comes back from maternity leave and we're just going to double down on what we've been doing. So I think this like having what is the expression, like foot on the gas, especially from what we learned last year. So I think that's probably for the 1 year. I think 5 years, like love to... Yeah, I guess like, I mean, I think definitely like would love to have like a team of people that we are employing and working with, which would be super exciting. I think being able to just work for ourselves. Sorry, companies. It's fine. But I think just being able to still be around, right? I think just like be around as a scalable business is one. I think like maybe a big in-person conference, like, I don't know, shooting it out there for visions. But I think really 5 years, like I would be super proud for being able to say like, wow, Marketing Women's been around for 10 years. Like, I think that for me is like what would make me most proud, that we're still around. And I think just the impact that we've made, like to see some of our members like become VPs of marketing, or even if some of them want to be chief marketing officers at great companies, or even folks that, whatever it is that they're doing, like they're still around and still there. So I think that's really probably like the 5 year.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think that's
it. It'll be almost, we'll be like, okay, almost 10 years. Would be the part that I think, would make me proud. Because I think the part that, I guess the parts where I always like, once Marketing Women, like we switched to paid, I think that for me was like, okay, like we're
serious,
legitimate and serious. And I think, hitting that part. I mean, even the fact that like celebrating our 4 years and after that will be 5 years is still like a mind-blowing like thing, but it's super proud of, because, like, I mean, the stat of like 90% of like fail. So I think really just building a scalable and sustainable.
Yeah, I love that. And I see that happening. I'm putting it out there into the universe.
Yes, right. Put it out there.
All right. So to wrap up, I asked this question of everybody. If you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were just starting Marketing Women, what would it be?
Ooh, like when I was starting Marketing Women, I guess two probably, because I'm extra, but one would be just do it. I think just like put it out there, and just try. Two would be, I guess maybe one. Probably the one would be just do it. Like
just do it.
Out there. Yeah. Brain fart. Sorry.
I love it. Just do it. And where can people find Marketing Women online and you online?
Yeah, so for me, definitely my name on LinkedIn. Marketing Women, we have our LinkedIn page, and then our website, just www.mktgwmn.com. And then for our podcast, Marketing Talk, we're on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Amazing. But also you can find it on our website.
Yes, go check it out, and we'll tag you everywhere we post this. And thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Courtney. It was super great and super fun.
Of course. And thank you to everyone at home or on the go for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. And if there's anything you'd like to hear on an upcoming episode, just let us know. For more insights, follow us on LinkedIn or visit rightleftagency.com. And we'll be back next time with more stories of success, innovation, and marketing strategies to help you grow. See you on the next one.